Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the It's All Possible podcast. Super excited this week because we're talking about high performance talent. And we're going to focus on cycling, one of my passions. And I'm really excited to speak to Stinus Kaempe this week. And he's a young professional rider. He's going to hit the circuit in Europe this year. We're going to talk to him all about data, information, leadership, process, mindset, a whole bunch of stuff. But he doesn't even know what's coming up yet. Stinus, how are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks. How are you, Rob?
I'm really good. Hey, mate, we always like to start these off because it's the It's All Possible podcast. What does the word possibility mean to you?
I think to me, I reckon it means that you make the most out of like the chances you've got yourself and make your own luck, I guess, in a way, and make the most out of the opportunities that you have given to you. And then just saying yes, basically to every opportunity there is. I don't think I ever will say no to going on any given ride at any time or doing, for any training. I think it's, really key to at least my motivation is just doing everything and saying yes to doing any race or any training ride.
Beautiful. I love that. There's a great quote someone gave me and they said, I live on the other side of yes. And I think that applies to you, yes. And then I'm going to find out what I'm doing. I live on the other side of yes. I think it's a really great thing to do. I love possibility being, where optimism meets opportunity. You kind of glass half full, but then the opportunity comes along and you go, hey, you know what? That's possible. That could actually happen. So I love that definition of yours, and no surprise. Hey, look, so we met through cycling. And you're cycling with the Hurt Box and with the training group there with Steggles and the team. But tell me, first of all, because I know you did a bit of sailing, which is also one of my passions. You were sailing 29ers at one point and things. So did the sailing come first and then the cycling? How did it work? How did you get into cycling?
Yeah, so what happened was I have been swimming my whole life up until around 2017, mid 2017, where I went to Denmark for a year. Where I'm originally from, and then came back here, and I couldn't swim whilst I was over there for the year, and then came back here and didn't want to start swimming again, and so I flirted a bit with a few sports like running and sailing. I actually did a fair bit of sailing in the 29ers, which I really liked. So much fun because I'd done a fair bit of sailing in Denmark during the year I'd been there. And it's just a great sport. But then I unfortunately found the bike. Unfortunately for sailing, found the bike, and it was just excitement and just like love for a sport on a whole other level.
And how did that happen though? Were your parents cyclists? Did you get introduced to it? So what sort of got you into first cycling and then deciding to race?
So being from Denmark, sort of born and bred riding my bike around just to school and all sorts of things. So I've always lived on a bike, but I've never seen it as anything more than a sort of form of transportation until start of 2019, where Thomas Sørensen, who's an ex-professional goalkeeper for Denmark, who we're good family friends with, he pulled me out for a ride. And it was just great fun. And then about a week or two after we'd done that first ride, I'd done a few more rides, and we went up and did the Peaks Challenge, but over 2 days as a sort of scouting mission for him. So I got a real taste of being up in the mountains and riding my bike and going fast down descents and things like that. Just literally weeks after I'd started, training.
And you had a bike? Did you have a decent bike to go with him on that?
Yes, I had a. From some other family friends, I had gotten a giant TCR, which I had gotten from babysitting their kids and working in their garden for about half a year. So I'd been helping them out. So they had given me an old giant TCR with 105 and 10 speed, mechanical. It was great.
Awesome. So that's fantastic the way you got into that. Now I came across you too, because you then wouldn't be too far after that when you really started to get into racing then. And I think I came across you when you did the event in Bright. And you had a really successful event in Bright, if I recall. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you did the time trial in Bright and you used the same bike. You just bolted time trial bars to it. Did you do that?
So what happened was I joined with the Hurt Box so I started doing I did a few crits. So I started cycling in January, that year, 2019, and then did a few crits before the crit season ended. And then I did the Amy's Grand Fondo down on Great Ocean Road and came fifth in my age group, and was like with them on the climb, even though I'd done like no training. So
let's just put this in perspective, Stinus. Tell me about Amy, because I've done Amy's, and fifth is amazing. How many people do Amy's? When you say you got fifth out of how many?
I think in my age group there were maybe 60 starters, something like that, and it was 18
So it's a
to
massive
35.
ride, isn't it? It's a massive ride.
Oh, there's hundreds of people, and yeah, so I did that, and then my dad and I thought, he's actually all right at this. Maybe we should give it a crack. And then so joined up with Steggles, the Hurt Box, in September, and then just pretty much straight away went to Bright for the first weekend of December, and did 2 of Bright on my. At that point, I had gotten a new bike because my old one had actually been stolen. I was on the same bike that I'm on now, a Cervelo S5, 2015 rim brake, and I just didn't have a TT bike, so just bolted I just had bought some clip-on aero bars off eBay. It cost me about $15, and then just put them on, and off we went. And I had expected, because I'm about 59 kilos, so I'd expected to lose time in TT, but ended up winning by about a minute in C grade. So that was good fun.
It was extraordinary result, given what most people have 2 bikes up there, and you did that with the $15 bars off eBay, which I thought was extraordinary in your first crack at it. Let's talk about that stats. So you just mentioned there you're like 59 kilograms. What height are you?
Yeah, 175.
All right, we're going to talk about diet later on, ladies and gentlemen, because if you're just doing the numbers in your head right now, and I've seen some of your power numbers as well, and they're quite extraordinary, the way you do it. Now, you also do a bit of cycling with James Grogan, who's an elite sailor. James is a young elite sailor I've known for a long time. When you two get together, I mean, and you've done a bit of sailing. So what are the sort of similarities you see between what James is doing and what you're doing? What are some of the things that you both do?
Definitely 2 big similarities between cycling and sailing is the amount of time you spend on the water or on the bike. Like, there's a lot of time that goes into it. You have to really be dedicated because it just takes hours on the water, perfecting skills, but also just learning different conditions. And it's also just time consuming with setup and taking down, which is all part of it. And then with cycling, the only way you get good is by doing big hours on the bike. So those 2 things, dedication and just time, is, like, I reckon the biggest 2 similarities.
And what are you looking for when you're doing time on the bike? And what are you doing when you're doing time on the bike versus, say, someone doing short activity on the bike, but short intense activity versus time on the bike? So time on the bike seems to be better. What are you looking to build in yourself when you're doing time on the bike?
Yeah, so a lot of people might do a bunch ride, which might take an hour or 2, where I do a lot of like 4, 5, 6, sometimes 7-hour rides that are just building aerobic fitness, building the aerobic system, making the heart bigger, and increasing your aerobic capacity.
But giving it time to do it, as opposed to a short burst when you're doing it.
For sure. It just takes time, and it's the only way to build that up is by giving it lots of time. It's not something you can rush or do in a short period of time.
And what sort of, when you're cycling, because we have so much more data available now, and I'm sure you've looked at the old cycling shots, and people had back at this now, when I say back in, I'm talking like 50s, 60s, 70s, and they just, it was very zen riding, wasn't it? They didn't have the data. You've got so much data now. What are the key data points you've got or you're focused on when you're training, especially?
I started out with just a heart rate monitor, which can tell you a lot. But at the end of the day, it's all for training. It's all about power. So I've got a power meter on the bike, which reads how many watts I do at any given time. And that's basically what all my training sessions and things are based off of.
Yeah. And so you're with Steggles, David Sturt, who's your coach, is Steggles looking at other things, or the same data that you're looking at?
So he looks at all the things that my Garmin will record during a given ride. So he might also look at the time that it's taken me to get from the bottom to the top of a climb, or he looks at he mainly looks at the power to see what power I'm doing over given times, and then looks at the heart rate, because you can sort of tell how fatigued I am. as well, if the heart rate doesn't go high enough. So that's a big part of it.
Right. So that's a great little segue, because one of the things I find with high performance anything, but people often struggle to understand it, is that the importance of rest. And you talked about fatigue then, and then why is rest important, and what happens when you rest?
Well, rest is really where all the gains are made. It's when your body's, when you're sleeping and just have your feet up. That's when your body's building muscle, and rebuilding up tears in your muscles, and allowing gains to be made, really. So it's important to sleep. I've actually just gotten a new device here, which is like a bit of a Fitbit on steroids, that tells me basically all about how recovered I am, and that's its sole purpose.
What's that? What is it, Stinus?
So it's a Whoop. It's becoming a bit of a trend at the moment in cycling. There's a lot of people who've started to get them. But
Yeah.
it measures your heart rate, and then your exertion during. So you wear it 24/7, and then it just tells you all the things that you do off the bike as well. How that affects your, essentially, how ready you are to perform when you need to.
That's funny, because I just had a triathlete friend of mine send me a note about that. Said she just got it, and was said I should take a look at it. So that's so strange that you picked up on. So I'd be interested to see how you go along with looking at it. So I think that's a really good one in the rest. And I say to people, I don't know anything high performance, whether it be a high performance Formula One engine or a motorcycle engine, that always gets pulled down, right? So after they've done the event or the race, it always gets rebuilt and pulled down during the week, and then they go testing again. No one sort of takes the same engine that wins one Saturday and say, well, let's just keep going. It won, so let's flog it harder. And it's even more important when we talk about the human body. Now, a lot of the cycling things that I've read, and certainly stuff that I've done in elite sport, mainly in sailing, mindset is so important. A lot of times that your fitness and everything else is equal to your competitors, and it's the mindset part. But I find cycling is one of the toughest things too, when you're really in pain, when you're really struggling. And what do you do when you get that feeling? And I might even take you back to the nationals, which we've just done. You were talking about the under 23s, the road nationals you were doing at Mount Buninyong. And you were talking about, I think it might have been lap 9, if I'm right about that, where you talked about the pain really set in. What do you do when that pain starts to really set in to keep yourself going?
Yeah, it's hard. That's sort of where that's where the race is won or lost. A lot of times it's just about how deep can you go, how deep a hole can you dig yourself. And I think I tend a lot, especially during the time trial, actually. It was a weird feeling. I just didn't really think at all for 40 minutes. It's just literally, I had the Steggles in my ear during the TT over the radio, and it's just don't think. There's just no thoughts going through my mind other than turn the pedals and just go. And I think, it's about trying to put away the pain and think about anything else, basically, just not the pain, and then trying to just dig deeper. I think that's
so that focus you had, which is, was 100% focus, and you ended up with a 10th in the time trial, which is outstanding. Do you think Steggles as a coach plays a strong part in keeping you focused in what he's talking to you?
Yeah, especially when he was over the radio there, he was trying to make me focus a lot on writing a good line. So he would say whether he thought I should make sure to keep me towards the center of the road, where the road's a bit smoother. But then also, especially when it goes uphill, which is where I'm good, he would be telling me that this is where you're good. This is where you're good. Come on, put the power down. This is where the seconds can be made up. And at the end of the day, that is what matters. That you switch on and think, okay, this is it. This is crunch time. It's now that I need to put down the watts to get going.
Honest, you probably don't know what you said then, but that is so applicable to many leaders I coach, what Steggles was doing and what you were doing. Because many leaders coach their team, right? And they know where their team members are good, but they also know their team members sometimes go off track a little bit, or off on a tangent a little bit, which we're all human, we all do. And I think just that kind of, just a kind of metaphor for basically keeping on the line, keeping on doing what you're doing with the main goal ahead, But I love that the encouragement side is so important. Like we really encouraged you where we knew you were good to go for it at that point on the hill as well. And that we also have people we coach and lead that we know there's some things they do really well, some things they do okay, and sometimes some things they shouldn't be doing, right? But I think that's a really great one, just encouraging you. And I think it's a good point when he talked to you, this is the bit if you go for it, you're confident because you know you're good when it comes to those climbs. I think that's remarkable and full kudos for having. And I think the other big point for that one is have the right coach in your ear, right? So it's better to have Steggles in the ear rather than me. I'd just be cheering you, right? I'd be giving you no tactical advice. I'd be cheering you. I'd be useless in that particular point.
Yeah.
What were the differences between the time trial, which is you flat out focused, 40 minutes or so, and it's on your own, and you're on your own, and it's like hard at it, versus the road race, which is over a set of hours. It's longer, it's more intense. Let's first of all talk data. Do you look at any data on the time trial, or is it just Steggles doing that? And then do you looking at different data when you do a road race?
So yeah, it's interesting. It's very different for those two. For my time trial, I looked a lot at the power. I sort of had a pacing strategy in mind. I know the course inside out. So essentially, I don't need to look pretty much for a lot of the sections on that race. I don't need to look where I'm going. It's just head down, look at the power, try and get as aero as possible. And so for that is just trying to keep the power up, but also making sure on the sections where you're going faster to back off the power a bit. So make sure you don't go too hard and blow up. It's all about pacing.
Yes. And when you go to the road race?
Yeah. So in the road race, don't look at anything, especially on a circuit that's like this one, because you come around, the laps, it's 11 Ks. You've done it so many times. You know how long the hill takes, and you can't really be deciding, oh, I'm doing too much power now, I need to back off, because then you're going to get spat out the back. So there's no point in looking at your power, because you're not dictating the race, at least when you're just sitting mid race in the pello. So that's when you need to just look forwards and just keep going.
And so it's a lot about the competition, a lot about what's going on around you. So your sort of spatial awareness has got to be a lot stronger in that kind of race.
Oh, 100%. You've got to be on the ball, otherwise it's just dangerous as well. You need to know where you're going and where the people around you are, but also then be ready if someone attacks to follow the wheel. When it comes down to crunch time, at least.
Now, you guys also really focus on where mistakes can be made. And I saw a little video of you training, picking up your feed bag. So this is when the rider goes past, and you might see it on the Tour de France. If you're out there watching that, you see that someone holds a feed bag out and you go past and grab it and you take it, and that's what's going to keep you energized and keep you going. And I saw a video, I think it was on Instagram, you showed you training for that. How fast are you going when you pick up the feed bag?
I think in the video that I put on Instagram there, that was in preparation for the Melbourne Swarnable, which is 267 Ks, which then got cancelled because of the lockdown. But I think it was around 38, 39 Ks an hour, thereabouts. Right. That was the speed we're practicing. So about race pace.
Yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, what you're saying there is if you just drive along your car doing, say, 40 kilometers an hour and stick your hand out and grab hold of something efficiently and not get it stuck, not get it tangled. I thought that was a really good thing you were practicing, because the error, if the error happens at that point, it's just catastrophic. It's just end of race, isn't it? If you get that wrong.
Fueling is so important. You can't afford to miss. Maybe you can miss one feed zone because the race is hot, or because you just drop it, but you can't just miss two in a row. You just can't, you need food, and without that, you can't finish the episode. It's all over, basically.
Yeah, which is why when you look at anything that's, what's critical, what could go wrong, practice and practice and practice that. And I just really thought that was it was just so reflective of what you're doing. What would you have done differently? I think you were 32nd in the road race, and I think you were looking for something higher than that. I thought you rode well again, especially off the back of the time trial. What would you have done differently?
Yeah, thanks. So I was. It is to put the result into perspective. So I came 32nd out of 130 starters, and I think there's about 50 finishes. So I think, I, yeah, I was generally pretty happy with most of the race. I had I dropped my chain, which shouldn't be happening. So I would definitely need to just, look into into the bike a little bit, just to try and outsource
Where did you
what the
drop the
problem was.
chain out of interest?
Going up the hill. Um, so yeah, it's not, no, it wasn't ideal. So I had to chase back on going up the hill, but which, at the end of the day, was sort of, it finished me off a fair bit, and I just, didn't have it after about, 10 laps or so out of the 12 laps, and then ended up getting a cramp. So I think,
So you had to dismount to put the chain back on?
so there's neutral. So I had to stop, and I tried, but then before I managed to get it on, the SRAM neutral service had come over and pulled the chain. Pulled it out of, because it was pretty wedged onto the frame, and so in between the crank and the frame, and so they just pulled it out and then chucked it on, and then the guy gave me a push. So they were pretty good, those guys. But yes, so I only lost about a minute or so. Maybe a bit.
That is so much time.
It is,
for you.
yeah.
For you,
Yeah.
I dropped my chain in that event, but I dropped it on the speed humps on the way down through the uni.
Yep.
It bounced, and and for me, and the guy, I'm a rank amateur, but I was frustrating enough for me. It must have been incredibly frustrating for you. I didn't get it jammed. I was able to sort of just popped off, and I popped it back on. But when you're in the moment, I mean, losing a minute for you, I mean, that, and just the whole focus, adrenaline that must have been going through you at that particular point. So I think the result you got is outstanding given that. But maybe a mechanical on the bike somehow. I don't know what caused that.
Yeah, I definitely felt that there was a lot of things that I had improved from last year, which was last year was insane for me, because it was basically my first race. It was my first race after that C grade Tour of Bright. So it was a pretty big shock to the system, because the levels just
intense,
so much higher. So I had definitely gotten a lot better this time around at riding in a peloton, but also I just gotten so much fitter, a lot fitter, which made a big difference. I think just what I am lacking now is not so much the power; it's the conditioning, to make those, to just have the good power throughout the entire race.
Right. So endurance, probably more an endurance thing rather than the time trial thing, which you look like you really got nailed. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because crits and time trials I'm doing pretty well in. But that's one of those things that's a bit of it's not a disadvantage, because it's just the way it is. But the guys who've been riding since they were 12, they've just been on the bike and done so many more Ks. Their legs is just like so much more used to doing Ks than I am, who've been riding for 2 years.
I feel for you, because I just said I discovered, I didn't have Lycra until I moved down to Bayside, so it's been fairly new for me as well, and I totally get it. So you're starting at a great age. Tell me on the fitness side, just can you give me a couple of pointers what you're doing differently? You said now you're much fitter than you were 12 months ago. What are a couple of things you're doing differently or practice more?
So obviously for last year, I had only pretty much just been doing the hurt box for a couple of months. So just having been a whole extra year in that process has helped a lot. Has just made me fitter all around. Also being more efficient. So because I race A grade now, which has better racing, which is also more intense, and it's more important to ride good positioning in the bunch to save energy, basically, because racing's all about saving energy, as opposed to who can spend the most energy. So therefore I was able to ride more efficiently just around the whole circuit, which allowed me to conserve more energy throughout the race.
Yeah, I like that. It's a great thing about, it's all about saving energy. I really love that. And again, another great metaphor for, anything high performance. It's you're saving energy, conserving energy to use it when you really need to. So next steps for you, you're going to Europe. You're going to Europe to rides. Tell us about that. Tell us when you're going and what sort of riding you're going to be doing.
Yeah, so because as I said earlier, I'm originally from Denmark. and I finished year 12 at the end of last year, I've sort of just made the decision to just head over to Denmark and do some racing there. There's the main reason being that there's a lot more racing over there than there is here. Unfortunately, there's not that much racing going on here, even in a normal non-COVID season. So I'm just seeing it as an opportunity to go ride my bike a lot more and race a lot more, just to gain experience and race kilometers, and hopefully maybe get to race some cool high-ish level racing, which would be cool.
And will it be in Denmark and other parts of Europe? I mean, COVID hopefully, but will be a little bit less an issue now, also when you go than now. So we'll be racing outside of Denmark as well.
That's the goal. I'm really keen to race in Norway. They have some great race over there, and it's really hilly, some good mountains up there. So I'd really like to do a few races over in Norway. Also, if I could get the opportunity to either race some Belgian Camises just for the experience of that, but also further down south towards Italy and France, I'd really like to do some of that. And that's definitely the goal moving forward, to be able to do some of those races, because at nature by build I'm a climber, and in Denmark there's not a lot of climbing. It's a very flat country.
Yeah, well, look, fantastic. Wish you all the best of luck. We'd love to follow your journey. What's the best way people can keep up with you on the social media channels?
Yeah, so the easiest way to follow with me is by following me on Instagram, which is I'm pretty active on. I try to just let people know what I'm doing, and so that my Instagram handle is at STINUS, and then 4 more S's after that. And it's pretty easy, yeah. So that's probably the easiest way to follow along. Otherwise, awesome. the Hurtbox Instagram, or my team, the team that I'll be riding for in Denmark's Instagram, which can be found via my profile. Yeah,
beautiful. All right, we'll put that in the show notes as well, Stinus. Really happy. Thank you so much for joining us. It was really great to get an insight into your mind, the work, and all the intense effort you've put in over the last couple of years. I'm really hoping for exciting and big things for you in Europe in 2021 and beyond. Thanks for coming on the show.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe and rate the podcast you listen to so we can continue to serve and inspire others. Remember, connect to us on all the social media channels. The Art of the Possible podcast is hosted by me, Rob Hartnett, and produced by Finn Hartnett. Connect with us directly on LinkedIn, Rob-Hartnett, Hartnett, and Finn Hartnett.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.